Hey guys, what's going on? It is Ash here coming at you today in Clash Royale. So last Clash Royale episode, I asked you guys what video you wanted to see next. Do you want an expert interview or do you want an archetype deck series covering the beatdown deck? And it was really neck and neck, so I kind of went with the first one that I had up close to ready here, and that is an expert interview with Surgical Goblin all around the minor control deck. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring him in. Tomorrow's episode for Clash Royale will be on the beatdown archetype, so guys, enjoy. Alright guys, I am here with Surgical Goblin, aka Frank. Frank, what's going on, man?
Hey man, thanks for having me.
I am very excited to have you on because you, my friend, are one of our top performers recently in my daily Twitter tournaments, and you've been doing really, really well. You've won 2 now, and you're going to go for your 3rd tomorrow, so I've invited you on. You're one of the best control deck players that I've met, and specifically minor control decks. So you want to tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, and how long you've been clashing before we jump into the strategy tips?
Yeah, sure. I'm 16 years old and I'm from the Netherlands, and I've been playing since the worldwide release because it wasn't out before in my country. So then I picked the game up, and after that I haven't really stopped.
Awesome, man. And what is your clan?
Hammer eSports.
Awesome. So it's really good. Like I said, it's really good to have you on. You're going to be sharing 2 decks with us, and I figured on top of the usual questions that I ask my guests, my pro guests, I would also ask you a little bit about, actually, I would ask you to take a look at one of my replays that I just played using one of your decks, and you can really scrutinize me, pick it apart, and tell me what I should have done differently. So does that sound good to you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, cool, man.
Awesome.
You want to do that now?
Well, let's go ahead and play a couple of your I'm going to play a couple of your replays, and let's first familiarize ourselves with the deck that you use, your main deck here, which you had so much success on in today's tournament. And it
yes, indeed.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about the deck? Just kind of give us a general overview of it.
I mean, it is a really good control deck because it has almost every counter against every deck. The Inferno is really key, especially against Giant and Lava Hound decks, but you do have to watch out because people sometimes use Lightning, so you want to wait with your Mega Minion before they use the Lightning, and then the Mega Minion will clean up the Lava Hound and the Pops.
I was going to ask real quick, if you have, just before we get too ahead of ourselves, do you have any substitutions that you'd recommend if people don't have either the log or minor, or are those really important to the deck?
Yeah, I mean, the minor can't be replaced, but the log, you can replace that for Zap, definitely.
Okay, great. So why don't you kind of tell us about it looks like you're relying heavily on the minor and a lot of like chip damage and poison damage offensively.
Yeah, indeed.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your offensive strategy and mindset when using this deck, and also about your best offensive combination, what you're using more often than not to take down one of your opponent's towers?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what the enemy's cards are. For example, if he has Bowler, minor guards combination isn't really that effective, but then I like to use the Mega Minion minor combination. You will also see that in a few replays coming up soon. And that combination is also deadly because people don't really have like minions or anything in a deck pretty often, so it can deal a lot of damage.
Okay, great. So you mentioned the bowler decks, and those seem to be like everywhere, especially in tournament play. So are you putting your minor on the opposite side of the bowler and then dropping down your Mega Minion or guards?
Yes, I mean, I like to switch the minor placements so they can predict and it will deal chip damage.
Nice.
But sometimes I just wait before they use the bowler and then try to counter and rush the other lane with minor guards combination. But it really depends on what they play and my rotation.
Okay, so getting back to the offense a little bit. So you mentioned that you are relying heavily on your minor and obviously your guards. Now, is it basically most of your offense, I'm assuming, out of this deck comes from like successful defenses and building up that elixir advantage?
Yes, definitely. Building up the elixir advantage is key because you can deal with enemy pumps, and you can also like protect your pump with guards. And if you know he has the poison, you just try to like put the ice spirit, so the ice spirit will freeze the miner, and then you put the mega minion on top, and it will get no hits.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, defensively, obviously, you have like a plethora of defensive weapons in this deck. What is your
Yes,
general,
yeah.
what is your general mindset defensively using this deck in terms of, obviously you're relying heavily on your Inferno Tower, in guards, and Mega Minion, and Ice Spirit, basically everything. But what's
Yeah.
your main defensive philosophy when using this deck?
I mean, when I face Giant, Inferno is really key, and most of the times I use Poison defensively, and then I put my own Mega Minion on their Mega Minion, because the meta now is like Giant, Mega Minion, Prince, and sometimes Bowler. But if you can take out their Mega Minion, your Mega Minion on defense can get so much value, and you can even counter push with it. And then you automatically build up an elixir advantage, and then while you're defending, you can also like cycle back to another pump and then keep stacking elixir.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so against those tanky decks, basically you're trying to get some separation between the giant and whatever's coming behind him with
Yes.
with the aggro from the Inferno Tower, and then you're hitting the DPS units coming behind the tank with your Mega Minion and guards. Awesome.
Yeah.
Pretty simple. What about a Lava Hound deck? Is pretty much the same idea, right?
Yeah, as I just mentioned, if you know they're running Lava Hound and you haven't seen, for example, a poison spell, they could run lightning, so you want to wait with your Mega Minion, otherwise they can get much value out of their lightning. But if they place their lightning and you place your Mega Minion, he can just clean up the pops and kill the Lava Hound.
Okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And my replay that I'm going to share with you in just a minute here is actually going to be against a Lava Hound deck, so I'm sure you can give some tips in that replay as well. But
Yes, definitely.
before we do that, if you could be so kind, could you share a couple common mistakes that you see without looking at my replay first on what that people sometimes do when using a deck like this?
Yeah, overcommit on the pushes.
Okay.
I mean, my offensive pushes can be poisoned as well, and if I push like, or if people push like with miner and then guards and Mega Minion, a poison and an ice spirit most of the times will kill it, and then for example, if they have a mini P.E.K.K.A, they will counter my miner with a mini P.E.K.K.A. They will have a really good trade and the counter push, so you have to be aware of that.
Yeah, so basically just being too aggressive offensively. I mean, it is a control deck, so it's all about, building up that slow elixir advantage, right?
Controlling the game indeed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
What type of deck do you struggle most against with a deck like this, or are you pretty skilled? Obviously, winning all these tournaments, you must be pretty well versed against all the meta decks, but is there one particular deck that you're like, oh crap, I don't want to go against this?
Yeah, sometimes I really struggle against like full air with lightning, because if I place as I just mentioned, place my Mega Minion too early, and they will stun my Inferno, they can come through pretty easy, and then they will deal a lot of damage.
Yeah, that's a good point there. So basically, all you can really do is hope that you can, or the attacker is too aggressive and uses that lightning before you use the Mega Minion, and otherwise it's pretty difficult, I imagine.
Yeah, indeed. But if you most of the times, if I see a Lava Hound coming from the back, I would just try to get aggressive. For example, with guards miner on the other tower, so rush the other lane.
Oh, okay, that's smart.
Yeah, because then they won't be able to like build up a really strong push.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good advice. I often tell people that a lot of people, no matter what the deck is, they ask. One of the most frequent questions I'm getting lately, because the giant meta is so popular right now, is how you go up against one of these really big tanky giant pushes And a lot of the times, that's the answer I give, is just go in the opposite lane, not with all your elixir, but take away some of their big push advantage in that lane.
Yes, indeed.
Exactly.
Indeed.
So you definitely agree. Well, if like I said, if you wouldn't mind, want to go ahead and watch my replay?
Yeah, just tell me when you're ready to click watch.
Absolutely. I'm clicking watch right now, and why don't you go ahead and tell me if you want me to pause at any point, but you just go ahead and feel free. Tear me apart, Frank. Tear me apart.
Yeah, yeah, I will.
Okay.
Okay.
So
you
go ahead.
You have a pretty good starting hand.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely start with the pump, so that's a good thing.
So I see the hound coming at me.
Yeah, I mean, I will probably rush the other lane with minor Ice Spirit, just to like get some damage in there and not let him build up a really strong push.
Mm-hmm.
And as I just mentioned, with the lightning spell, you don't know his spells yet, so
yes,
he could have gotten really much value if he had a lightning spell.
That's true.
I see he doesn't have.
Yeah, I kind of lucked out there. You're right, though. I mean, it seemed all well and good when I was doing it, but you're right. If he had lightning spell, that would have been bye-bye tower for me.
And also with the Ice Wizard, he dealt like over 300 chip damage, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And with one Ice Spirit, I don't know if you know that counter, but with one Ice Spirit, you can counter the Ice Wizard without getting one shot.
Oh, okay, good advice there.
I don't know if you know that trick or...
Yeah, I don't know the exact trick. Is it due to the putting the Ice Spirit right in the middle of the map?
Yeah, indeed. And then the Ice Spirit can tank like 2 shots from an Ice Wizard. And the Ice Spirit will then jump on the Ice Wizard, so it will get freezed. And then the Arena Tower will finish it.
That's actually great advice there. So that's another mistake I made. I'm going to pause real quick here because I do want to talk about that little offensive push that I had on the right lane. Basically, I turned a Valkyrie hog push that he had, and I turned my counter troops into a little bit of an offensive push in the right. Was that all good for you? Do you think I overcommitted a little bit, dropping the poison, or was it good?
Yeah, I mean, the poison, I think it was a bit of an overcommitment because you didn't really get value out of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you drop guards or something, I would definitely poison, but he didn't drop anything, so I think the poison wasn't really needed.
Okay, so basically, wait. I guess I'm so used to on the beatdown decks where you just go ahead and drop the poison anyway, but you're right. I probably should have waited to see what he did, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and unpause here. So now I have the Lava Hound coming at me, and I have the 2 pumps up, so I feel pretty good at this point.
Yeah, you look really good, yeah.
And this time I used the miner on the right lane when I saw the push coming in the left.
Yeah, that was definitely a good thing, because he also couldn't respond to it, and a single miner will deal over 500 damage if left alone. So that's really good.
So I'm going to pause again, if you don't mind, Surgical.
Yeah.
And here, so during this point, by the way, this a little disclaimer, not to give excuses here, but this is my first time ever playing this exact deck. So at this point, I was a little bit... Well, I wasn't unsure of what to do. I kind of decided to, I thought about using the poison on the pups, but I knew that my tower and my Inferno Tower probably should stave off all that damage. So there's a lot kind of going on right now on the left. If you want to kind of delve into it and analyze, would you have done the same moves, or is there anything you would have done differently?
Yeah, I mean, I will probably, you put the Ice Spirit, like, right of the tower, of the left arena tower, but you don't want to let the Inferno Dragon lock on your Inferno or Arena Tower, so I will probably drop it a bit to the left, so the Ice Spirit could have tanked the Inferno Dragon shot, the beam.
Okay.
And then the Ice Spirit will froze it, and then the Arena Tower and Inferno will kill it. I'm not sure if it locks on the tower or not, but...
Yeah, I mean, the tower was almost down, but you're right. It did definitely lock onto the tower towards the end there. And you can see in the right lane, I was able to take down the tower, but again, I was a little bit too aggressive with that poison spell. I'm not sure if you pressed play again, but the miner took down...
At what trophy count are you now? Time limit?
What's that?
At what time you're at now?
Oh, I just let it run. I'm at like 2 seconds now, but But basically, I was talking about when I took down the right tower, I got a little bit too aggressive again. I used the miner, and the miner probably would have taken it down on its own, but I used the...
Oh yeah, I see now. Yeah, I
Yeah,
see. Yeah, indeed. You didn't need the poison there because he didn't try to defend your miner, so the miner would have dealt with the tower. So yeah, I
okay,
think
so I was a little
the
bit too
poison there was
Go
yeah,
ahead.
it was too aggressive. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was a little bit too aggressive with the poison spell in this match, and I think that maybe defensively I was a little bit early on the Mega Minion, and I made a couple small mistakes in terms of using the Ice Spirit in not the most ideal way.
Yeah, definitely.
Other than that, do you notice anything that I'm doing wrong in terms of just maybe my overall gameplay with the deck, or is it pretty on point other than those few mistakes there?
Yeah, I think you played that really well, except for the small details. And if you play a really good player, those small details really count.
You're right.
So you have to notice that. But
You're right. I won, but
overall you played really good. So yeah,
you're,
that's good.
no, you're totally right though. Even though I won, it was, it was a little sloppy. So, but now that I know what to look out for, thanks to your help, I'll definitely try to kind of tidy up those mistakes there. So maybe a little bit too aggressive offensively, and that's probably a common mistake that people make when using any deck, really, especially when they're just kind of getting used to it. You kind of tend to, at least me, I tend to be a little bit too aggressive offensively, but I appreciate the tips there. Do you have a few minutes to talk about the other deck that you use?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we're looking at it again. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the... let me just pull it up on the screen here. Okay, great. So the Three Musketeer deck. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this deck, what the overall deck is trying to do again, both offensively and defensively, and maybe just a few general tips for the deck. And do you prefer this to the control deck, or do you have a favorite, or?
I think the control deck overall is better because sometimes I struggle against giant beatdown with this deck.
Okay.
Especially when I don't start with the collector in my starting hand. But
okay.
I think this deck with the mini P.E.K.K.A, Jake aka Tech Your Pregnant is running it with the Knight, but
yes.
I think the mini P.E.K.K.A in this meta is better, especially against Giant.
Interesting. That's actually a really good piece of advice because I've actually been using the same deck that Tag Your Pregnant shared when he was on my channel, and I've been having a decent amount of success with it. I've won a couple grand challenges, but I've never gone 12-0. I had a 2 12-2s, and of course I've had my fair share of losses as well. And it just seems like, kind of like you said, I have the skeleton in there, I have the ice spirit just like you do, but I also have the knight, and maybe that would be a great change, the mini P.E.K.K.A for the knight, because of the beatdown decks.
Yes, me personally, I recommend using the mini P.E.K.K.A, but the knight also is a really good shield. Good in front of the, if you split the 3 musket, in front of the single musket. But I think this deck overall is better in defense.
Okay, so why don't you tell me about, I'm just going to kind of reiterate a couple of the questions that I asked Tag, because he was a great tournament player with a 3 Musketeer deck, and I want to see, did you listen to that episode by any chance, or did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah.
Was there anything that sticks out to you? I'm kind of blindsiding you with this question, but is there anything that stuck out to you that you do differently that he recommended, or are you pretty much on the same page?
No, I'm pretty much on the same page. Yeah.
Okay, so you always, well, not always, but most of the time you're splitting your musketeers.
Yeah, I'm always splitting them.
Awesome. And you're always going towards, these are just a few rapid fire questions that I asked Tag that I thought were interesting.
Yeah, no problem.
You're always putting them, or I guess I should ask you, are you always directing 2 musketeers towards the tower, the enemy tower with more health like Tag does?
No, not always. We could watch the replay, me playing against Zeld, if you want.
Sure. What one against who?
Zeld from Stars Gaming.
Okay. So yeah, let's go
Tell
ahead.
me when you're ready to click watch.
Yeah, so why don't you tell us what would make you decide to, what does it really depend on if your opponent's running like fireball, lightning, rocket and stuff as far as where you're putting your 2 musketeers versus your 1 musketeer?
No, not really. I mean, most of the times I try to build up a big elixir advantage, and because of the skeletons and ice spirit, you can cycle really fast. And most of the times, people running lightning have a heavy deck. For example, Lava Hound. So you can outcycle them pretty easy.
Okay, so let's pretend that it's a fresh match and you have 3 musketeers. You have like a starting hand of 3 musketeers, ice spirit, mini P.E.K.K.A, and skeleton. And your elixir collector isn't your next card. Are you ever going to start out the match with 3 musketeers, or is that something that you don't really like to do?
Sometimes I do, but most of the times I try to cycle and get my pump up.
Yes. Okay, so the 3 musketeers, what makes you decide to play them in front of the tower or behind the tower?
If I know the enemy cards, for example, I know he has the rocket, I will play the 3 muskets in front of my tower.
Okay.
But if I know he doesn't have like lightning or rocket, I like to split them behind my tower so I can build up a stronger push.
Perfect. That makes sense. And if you're going against one of these beatdown decks, is your general philosophy kind of the same in terms of building up that elixir advantage and then trying to use that mini P.E.K.K.A against the giant and basically relying on the musketeers as much as you can?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, great. So while we watch this replay, why don't you go ahead and, before we get into the shoutouts and stuff, can you just go ahead and share maybe any mistakes that you see with 3 Musketeer decks like this, kind of cycle-y 3 Musketeer decks?
Like people playing them, or what do you mean?
Yeah, like maybe if you see somebody playing a 3 Musketeer deck, or if you go against somebody playing a 3 Musketeer deck, what do you often see? If there's, maybe you don't have a good response for this, but is there a mistake that you kind of see people using the 3 Musketeers on where you're like, oh, I would not do that, or that's a big mistake?
Yeah, the tournament I just played in, your tournament you hosted, I faced a guy using 3 musket with knight, and he started really aggressive by playing them in the middle.
Okay.
And then put the knight in front, but I used my minor control and I could counter it pretty easy. And I had the elixir collector in my starting hand as well. So right at the start I had a big elixir advantage. So I knew it was like, yeah, GG, I think.
Yeah, and how about when you get 1 tower down of your opponents and there's only 1 tower up? Are you playing the 3 Musketeers on the opponent's side, or are you still splitting them? Are you ever playing them on your opponent's side, or are you still splitting them on your side more often than not?
Yeah, against Zeld, like the guy from Stars Gaming, I put them on his side to finish off the game.
So
yeah.
I guess it does depend on just where you are in the match in terms of the time left and where things stand in terms of tower damage.
Yeah, indeed, because sometimes they can counter it pretty easy and get an advantage of that and then kill your other tower.
Great, man. Well, I really appreciate all these tips. You've been very, very generous and kind with your time. I know it's late there in the Netherlands, so I just wanted to thank you. And before I let you go, you do have sort of a semi-announcement to make that you will be streaming soon. Is that correct, or?
Yeah, indeed. In 2017, indeed.
Okay, so it's going to be a couple months away?
Yeah, because I just moved to this new town, and the house we have on our mount, it has some reconstruction. It needs some reconstruction done, so that will take some time.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure a lot of the viewers are definitely going to be looking forward to that too. Have you chosen a platform to stream on yet, or are you still kind of exploring the options?
Yeah, probably Twitch.
Awesome. That's probably the way to go, right?
Yeah, indeed.
But, okay, so lastly, I don't want to put you on the spot again. You can feel free to say no, but I know a lot of my viewers really like to reach out to the experts and pros that I have on the channel, ask them for tips or maybe some tips on their decks. Is there a way to reach you maybe on Twitter or something that people can kind of say hi or ask you some questions?
Yeah, for sure. My Twitter DMs are open.
Awesome.
And my Twitter is at Surgical Goblin with no space or anything, and yeah, they can contact me for sure.
That's really, really kind of you. I'll be sure, guys, to put that in the description on this video as well if you want to reach out to him. Again, Surgical Goblin with no spaces on Twitter, and definitely, we talked a little bit before we started recording, and he's definitely really, really generous and helpful with his time, helping people out to build a deck that really suits them well, and also to give tips like you did for me. So just wanted to thank you so much again for coming on, man. Is there any other shout-outs?
Yeah, no problem.
Any other shout-outs or anything that I left out that you want to mention, or?
Yeah, shout-out to Jake, Tech You're Pregnant, and Hammer Esports for sure.
Awesome, man. Well, I love Hammer Esports, and I definitely love Jake, too. He's awesome. So, really, again, just wanted to thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure people picked up a ton of valuable advice from this expert interview. So, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you on Twitter and see you in game. Hopefully, you can win 3 tournaments in a row. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, indeed. Thanks, man.
No problem. Take it easy. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I also wanted to give a final shout-out, speaking of Hammer Esports, to Full Frontage. Nick, he's a great guy. I'll go ahead and include his, he's a streamer and a YouTuber. I'll include his information in the description below as well. So, guys, thanks so much for watching, and as always, take care, guys.